We're going to begin in a second. Okay, I want to welcome everyone to the April 13th, 2021 meeting of the Yarmouth Board of Selectmen. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 23rd, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Yarmouth Board of Selectmen is being conducted by a remote participation. All votes during this meeting will need to be conducted by roll call. No in-person attendance will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access and participate in the proceedings as provided for in the order. Public participation will be permitted by allowing members of the public to join this meeting via Zoom or via the telephone, and comments can also be sent in by email to publiccomment@yarmouth.ma.us. I will now take a roll call vote to enter into a meeting quorum and to start the meeting. So Mike Stone.
Aye.
Dan Horgan.
Aye.
Eric Tolley.
Aye.
Tracy Post.
Aye.
Okay, we're now in session, and the first order of business is to join the board in a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. The first item of business for this evening is public comments. So Kyle, do we have anybody in the waiting area seeking recognition?
Mr. Joe Glynn's up first.
Mr. Glynn,
Hi, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
we can hear you. Welcome.
Good evening. Good evening. Just a couple items. I know you have the superintendent in later on as part of the agenda. I'll be out here in the waiting room if you want to promote me at any time you can. But I just want to let you know that I'm here. Also, a couple good news items. The Yarmouth Housing Authority had 50 people get shots a couple weeks ago. Next week, they're going to have the second dose of the Moderna. But we just had our Yarmouth Housing Authority meeting, and our executive director, Wendy Olson, said that the Stop and Shop people were fantastic. They even brought gift cards for the people. We're doing our second doses, but just a big shout out that they said that they were so cooperative, and 50 people got from the Housing Authority, seniors got vaccinated. So that's good news. Also, in regards to the Housing Authority, there was a little confusion a couple weeks ago with the appointments, and there was a shuffling around, and it was understandable confusion on every part. So I got to the bottom of it with the help of Pam Barnes and Mr. Lawton and Mary Wagon in the Housing Authority executive director. What happened was Ed Blackman, who had passed away, was 5 or 6 years ago, was on the board on the Community Housing Committee, and the confusion is understandable because we've got people represented on the community. We have the Community Housing Committee, but we also got the Affordable Housing Trust, and we got the Community Preservation Committee. So there's confusion on what it was, but we got to the bottom of it. We just voted. Marianne Walsh will be your alternate now, if that's the way the selectmen sees fit. You took your alternate from the planning board and you put him on the board, but on the committee. But we're going to have an alternate representative from the Housing Authority. So I think that clears it all up. Sorry for the confusion on my behalf, because I I wasn't sure how it went, but it's all good. Congratulations to Mr. Whitnauer. I hope to meet you at some point. And the two Bobs are actually a thing now. Everybody's just saying the two Bobs. So it's a nice tag team. I don't know if it's Brady and Belichick, but it's a good team. But seeing how Bob Lawton is the GOAT of all administrators, it's a good tag team. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Next on the list to be recognized is Ms. Morris.
Hello, it's Vita Morris. You'll be hearing, of course, from the superintendent on the FY22 budget. Just at the base of all of it, the fact that we lost 198 students, which is a little more than 6% last year, and the original budget, they were looking to increase by about 4 2/3%. It's just a wonderful world, isn't it? I just don't. I think it's time again to try and see if we can't get them to do the zero-based budgeting, and this time try to present the united front with Dennis, because otherwise we'll be going through this year after year after year, and it's just amazing. Facts don't seem to interfere with anything at all with that group. So I'm hoping that at some point we can get together with Dennis and present a united front and see if we can move them to the zero-based budgeting. Apparently it is a difficult exercise the first year, I'm being told by people who went through it. But once you go past that, you have the framework in place and it becomes very easy and very normal kind of procedure. As far as wastewater goes, I'm hoping that I don't know where the other two towns stand right now, but I'm hoping that in a sense they will push Yarmouth to not put that on the town meeting agenda or on what is it? I suddenly can't remember the name of the document that we use at the town meeting agenda. Yes, thank you. So because I think I still think we need to do a little more work just to see exactly where we stand on trying to go alone. And most important of all, at this stage, I think we need to look and see what's going to come out of Washington on the infrastructure bill. Because of course it has all kinds of peripheral things in it, but I would think that something like this would be right at the forefront of wastewater, of the infrastructure. So I hope that this will all end up being put off at least until the fall or something like that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next person seeking recognition is Jill Talladay. Jill, the floor is yours. Jill Talladay, are you there?
Here we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to call attention to and make an invitation to the community to this weekend's annual town cleanup. It is Saturday from 8 until 2. And even though we can't be meeting in as groups like we normally do, there are plenty of locations that have been identified. And we're also encouraging people to clean up around their neighborhoods and also for local businesses to clean up in front of their businesses. This year's is actually a collaboration with the town of Yarmouth and the town of Dennis, and in partnership with both Chambers of Commerce, the Friends of Bass River, and Care for the Cape and Islands. And all of the details are located on the Yarmouth Chambers website. We're asking people to actually register so that we can send out additional information to them, as well as there will be 3 locations for drop off of trash. And that information will be provided to anybody that registers. So this Saturday from 8 until 2, and we hope that everyone will get involved and take pride in our communities.
That's great. Thank you, Jill. The next person up for public comments is Mr. Tom Nicanello.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tom Nicanello from the wonderful village of Bass River in the beautiful town of Yarmouth. Mr. Chairman, I see you got a nice agenda tonight. All kinds of exciting stuff. I'm sure you guys are going to be able to take a net to it and crack it right open. I'd just like to piggyback on what Jill Talday said, bringing from the Chamber of Commerce. This is our annual cleanup. We were unable to do it last year and we missed out on 3 tons of trash is what we usually pick up when the community gets together on our Earth Day, which I think Earth Day should be every day. But regardless of that, we have a whole host of organizations really going to try to make a difference. And hopefully we can exceed 6 tons of trash. We also have the Neighborhood Crime Watch people. As you know, we are one of the biggest communities for Crime Watch, and we have a lot of groups out there, people that help us patrol our community. So with that, it is Saturday. They're forecasting rain, but you know, Yarmouth is always sun somewhere, Mr. Chairman. So we'll be able to get it done and pick up all that trash. And then on a second note, personally, wastewater, following wastewater quite a bit. The wastewater resource committee does a great job. And I think they're at a stalemate. The same thing with the Board of Selectmen about whether Yarmouth should go it alone. And I think that, if we can develop a quick survey and get a feel of the community, then that will give us the decision of whether we go it alone or not. Personally, I think we should. The cost of construction is going to be way out there in 2 years when the other towns could come aboard. So we need to start fast. And I think they'll follow along. Our wastewaters, we've been waiting way too long. And I think we should just find out what the community thinks, because they're paying for it. They're the users and they'll be the benefit. So with that, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'll be watching and have a good night.
Thank you. Next for public comment is Joe Tierney. Joe.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate the time. I'm not going to, I don't want to get into the budget too much because Carol and I will be here, and I know Joe Glynn's also here on the call, so I don't need to go into that too much, except for the fact that I know that Carol and her staff and Ken Jenks, for some point in the matter, have worked very, very hard on this budget, and the budget's changed. It actually has gone up, and we've never really seen that as far as I know. But there's some different things in there that hopefully that the selectmen will get, and we'll get some support from that. So we look forward to talking with you on that earlier. Just a little bit about the schools. The schools are on vacation next week, so if you don't see any buses running around, it's not because they're remote, they're just on school vacation. The new school, just real quickly, we're in contract with Commodore Builders, and they will be starting hopefully in the next few weeks. You'll see some fencing going up around the Station Ave Elementary School just to get a perimeter, and they'll start clearing some trees and whatnot to start going on that. We hope to have a groundbreaking ceremony in the next couple of weeks. There'll be more information on that along with invitations to folks. So that's it on the schools. Just a little bit on the cleanup for Yarmouth. I know that I'm part of the Friends of Bass River on the board there, and I know they're going to be having a group in Yarmouth and in Dennis on Saturday. So some extra help there. So we'll be out there in full force trying to clean up around the river and in that area. So and then just real quick on the wastewater thing, I've kind of been an outsider on it, just kind of looking in. It seems like this has been a long time coming, and it seems like a lot of times Harwich was ready to go where Dennis and Yarmouth weren't ready to go, and then Dennis was ready to go and the other 2 towns. So I think we just need to stay the course and keep working with the towns and hopefully get this worked out. The group that's kind of spearheading this is doing a great job from what I can see. So that's just my input, and I thank you guys very much. Thanks.
All right, Joe, thank you very much for your comments. The next item on the agenda, hang on one second, I'm getting a message here from Kyle. Okay, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, Kyle, the health update, COVID-19 update for Yarmouth from the health director, Bruce Murphy. Bruce, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yep, can you hear me? I'm all set.
Okay, you're ready
Thank
to
you.
go.
Welcome to be here, Board of Selectmen. Also with me tonight on the meeting is Hillard Bosky, the Board of Health Chairman. With that, I'll go through the COVID update in the town, similar to what I've provided in the past. This is the first slide that shows us in the third wave. Hopefully it's leveled off. Looks like it might be coming down a little bit, but we don't know for sure. Still have a few cases coming in, obviously, but we can see it leveling off. So that's a good sign for right now. Okay. Interesting. What we have right here is the county slide of what the county, Barnstable County, has been seeing, and we can kind of see it kind of matches up the first wave, then goes up to the second wave, and we can see where we're in the third wave also. And the overall stats during this period of time for the Barnstable County, they've had almost 13,000 confirmed cases with 453 deaths. So you can kind of see how the lines graphs matched up. Thank you. Okay. Overall, from the beginning, we've had 1,467 cases, and we're also looking at about 76 cases right now, current. Okay, thank you. Still broken down, community spread by village. West Yarmouth, South Yarmouth, as I mentioned, and Yarmouthport with a little less population. Okay. Where we look at right now, I kind of broke it out where we are today by age, the breakdown, the positive cases on the left, we have the age, and we can see, the age group is pretty well, the highest is in that 50 to 59 has the highest, but the other cases are close right there. But I wanted to break down the last, on the right, the last 3 weeks of what our new cases, 180 cases over the last 3 weeks, where they have been. And I think the interesting point is we're seeing cases in that young age group from 0 to 19, and 0 to 10 was 16 cases, and 11 to 19, 29 cases. So that's really increased over the last 3 weeks. And I think that's from the variant spreading quicker. We are still a red high-risk community. It's not in the schools. So, I mean, we're not picking up cases, a cluster in the schools, because that would be if you had 2 or 3 cases within a classroom, which we don't have. But I also think it's from gathering, and what you're going to hear me later on saying, stay away from sleepovers, stay away from birthday parties that we're still seeing cases come in on. So it's kind of an interesting breakdown over the last 3 weeks. We do see it decreasing in 70 and over, probably because they're getting the vaccine out there, and maybe even the 60 group coming down a little bit. But it's still high in that age group of 20 through 60 that has the working group population and children. So I thought that was an interesting one we put together. Okay. As I mentioned, we're still in the red for the 4th week, red high risk community. However, our positivity rate has decreased along with Barnstable's has decreased, as we were the 2 highest positivity towns in the state. So that's come down a little bit, as we saw from the graph. However, we did see the town of Dennis go much higher in positivity rate to 9.7, almost 10. So they've really taken off on their cases in Dennis. And obviously that has some impact on our schools also, but we're still seeing no clusters, but we're seeing it more as community spread. And even the yellow towns that were just under being a high-risk community, those towns have increased percent-wise. Okay. So where are we seeing the clusters and where people might be getting it? I know this is a case, a question Tracy had raised at a previous meeting. And we can see on the left-hand side is most of the cases are coming from households. Obviously, they're getting it from households somewhere and bringing it into the household. And whether that's through a different family member, and as I mentioned earlier, carpooling or sleepovers or things like that. And that's where most of the house, and we're seeing it go through houses right now, spreading very quickly through households. So we're not seeing it as people picking it up as we go down the list here, as you can see from restaurants, retail stores, or even the school, that most everything is being spread through the household. Obviously it comes in from the household, but that's where it's spreading out from. Okay. Hospitalizations are down a little bit as based on yesterday. You know, we had seen a high of the end of March at 30 beds with 2 in ICU, and we're down to 16 beds, at least at Cape Cod Hospital, and 2 still in ICU. So that's come down since last week. So that's a good sign. Thank you. Deaths have gone up. We've received 3 deaths from the town clerk, 1 in March and 2 in April. So that they were younger people. We had in March was a 67-year-old male. And then the 2 in April, one was a 65-year-old female and a 79-year-old male. So they were all 3 deaths were at Cape Cod Hospital. So we went up to 34. Did bring our age range down though, average age down. Thank you. Variants is still spreading. We've seen the UK variants and the P1 variants spreading within Massachusetts and especially within Barnstable County. This was an article that was in the Boston Herald on Monday, where they talked to a BU professor and some people around Boston. And I was later in the article because we do have the most P1 cases in Barnstable County here. So they just wanted to just discuss statewide the viruses are coming through the state. So that was important. Okay. Then we just go into the article right here. I was mentioned that, you know, we need the vaccine down here to stay ahead of the variants that we're seeing down here. And the vaccine would help get us ahead of the variants as the spike continues. Okay. Okay, thank you. Interesting, the Washington Post was talking in general about the rise of variants in the United States going across, getting vaccine to get ahead of that with a possible 4th wave coming. So that was interesting. And they also reached out to me, interesting because they see it in the Cape Cod Times in the variants when they look at the CDC website, that Massachusetts did have the most variants of the P1 variants of anywhere in the country. And Florida just overtook Massachusetts on the number of P1 variants. So I was quoted in this Washington Post also last week. Again, needing vaccine. Precautions, I don't know how many times I can keep saying this. I say it every week at the select meeting, the Board of Health meeting, when I talk to people, you know, as we do our contact tracing, avoid gatherings. Can't believe we still get positive cases coming from dinner parties and birthday parties and sleepovers. It's spreading. You know, we see the number of children that are getting it now, the age groups are getting it now, and just keep hammering home the precautions that need to be taken. I know we all get pandemic COVID lapses that we just need to keep social distancing and keep following, taking precautions. Thank you. Jumping into vaccine now. Again, why we need it. We're still in the third wave. We're still high in the third wave, which is, we can see that even that when we first started the pandemic last May, April, we peaked out at 40. We're at twice 40 right now. We're at twice the number of active cases. So we do need to keep our guard up. And that's just so important. Okay, so I want to give you a few stats about what we're seeing. One is that we know that people over 55 and with the medical conditions are now eligible to for the vaccine, at least start signing up for it. And then next week, it's going to be opened up to 16 and over. So there'll be more competition, we should say, for the vaccine. So people will need to be patient towards that, especially now that, go ahead, next slide. Yep, next slide. This is the vaccine that's being shipped to Massachusetts overall from the federal government. And we can see that it spikes up. It's not a consistent coming into the state. The yellow part is the Johnson & Johnson that we get, which, as we know today, has been paused. So that's going to be an effect on getting some less doses. But you can see it's increased, which is the good number. We're getting more than our 950 at the county, and we're up to about 3,400 they're going to be receiving this week. This is a daily chart, every couple day chart, but the county's up to more, which is a good start, a continuing good start, along with the hospitals probably up to over 4,000 doses a week. So we're up to over 9,000 on the Cape. So I think that's a good start. We still need more to keep ahead of our variant. So next slide. As we can see the how it's being phased in from the state to the different counties within the state. Barnstable, has already had 163,000. So the county is getting some doses. We are putting it towards the, which we should, because we have the highest senior population. So we should be getting a good number of the county vaccine coming the state vaccine coming to our county. Okay. Just a couple interesting slides. I've probably got about 4 or 5 slides left, but just a couple interesting slides here on this is doses shipped to Massachusetts, provided by county. So our county population right here is the Cape, that they've shipped 76% of the vaccine coming in has gone to the county, which is just what I had mentioned earlier. Obviously, Boston and right around the city is getting the more doses with the mega sites, but we are getting doses here on the Cape, which we need because we have that high elderly population. Okay. People getting at least 1 doses spaced out by the county. Again, the Cape, we're up there. We've had 50% of the population here, over 100,000 that have received at least 1 dose. Again, that's leading some of the other counties, which is great. But we still have that, again, mentioning the high population that we needed to get that vaccine here. Okay. Fully vaccinated people by county. Again, the Cape has 32%. Again, we needed to get that here, get that, the Pfizer, Moderna here, so we could do that. So sounds good, looks good, 32%, but then also means we have a long ways to go to get that increase for more of our elderly population, or elderly population is doing well, but also over 65 and 50. Okay. Want to spend a little time on this one. This is a sheet that we showed last time, and I know, Mike, you had a few questions on the percent and the number of people being vaccinated, so I wanted to clear that up a little bit. But if we go down to the bottom is what we're kind of looking at. The age 75 and older, our population is about 3,600, which makes up 15% of our town population, and that group has received 3,300 at least 1 dose, which is 90% of that per capita area. I think the big thing is the bottom line of our 24,000, 11,000 have received at least one dose. So roughly half of our percent. Fully vaccinated at 7,600. So we are getting there as we look through the numbers. This is something that we look at each week that comes out. And it's just important that we keep saying we see vaccine coming in, but we still need more to get it out there into the public. And especially now to our next group that we're going to want to get down to 65, 50 and 64 and 65 and older. So I hope that, Mike, helps a little bit. I know you had a question right then. If we want to jump in now, we can come back at the end. Okay.
Fine, thank you.
Yeah. Homebound, I was hoping to have great news tonight, but they put a hold on that Johnson & Johnson this morning. Just as the fire department was driving to pick up the start our vaccination today with the fire department, we were heading over to pick it up from the Outer Cape Healthcare, and had already arranged to do to start doing 170 homebound. We were planning to do 60 today. Council on Aging had already called the people yesterday, the first group of 60 that were going out today, so they needed to recall them. Lieutenant Chris McMahon from the fire department has done a great job breaking out the five fire department teams that were going out to start it over the today. It would have been today, Wednesday and Thursday. So with that on hold, we will now try to work with Outer Cape Healthcare because we're not sure how long Johnson & Johnson will be down, and we'll work with probably using a Pfizer or Moderna vaccine, and we'll know better by the end of the week. And then we'll have to make sure it comes in, and we'll probably have to get that out to them. But unfortunately, we'll have to do that twice with 3 weeks in between. So it was just the timing of it. Outer Cape Healthcare was starting with Yarmouth and finishing with a couple other towns this week, and would have finished all the Cape homebound by this week. So now we've had to kind of call an audible and make a shift. So we've reached out to everybody, and the last slide that I have is the phone number for the Council on Aging. If people still haven't reached out, are homebound or need assistance, to call the Council on Aging, and we can still add them to our homebound list. So that's the overall presentation, Mr. Chairman. I do have Hillard on here if you have also questions for us.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bruce.
Yeah.
What I'd like to do is go around to the board and engage in a Q&A. I'm going to start with Dan Horgan. Dan, do you have any comments or questions?
Just a quick question for both Dr. Bosky and for Bruce. I'm wondering if you'll both be available later when we have the Eversource conversation.
Yes, they will.
Yes. Okay, good. Bruce, one of the things that it seems to me that we're getting to a place now where people are vaccinated once, even twice, and they're feeling safer.
Mm-hmm.
What is the protocol once somebody's been vaccinated? Are they safe at that point? What kind of precautions should they be taking regardless of vaccination status?
Yeah, it's a great question. That they still need to take precautions. The governor still has the mask order on. Even though they've had their vaccination, they can still give off the COVID. They just won't get, if they get it, they just don't get sick as they would because they've had a vaccine, but they can still shut it off. So I think they still need to take precautions, and I think that's what's happening with the good weather. The guard gets down a little bit. People feel a little bit safer. So it's just trying to keep everybody safe over the next month as we get more people vaccinated and trying to get ahead of the variants.
Do you know, are you keeping track of people who have been vaccinated that are finding themselves getting sick?
Yes, that's another one, great one. We are seeing people that have had the vaccine coming down with a different strain or getting sick again. The state is keeping track of that now. We have seen a few come in our town that people have had the vaccine and are now sick again. So the state has just recently started tracking that, so we don't have the numbers, but I can say that, yes, we've had a few in town.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Bruce.
Okay, Dan. Tracy Post. Tracy, do you have any comments, questions?
I have a couple questions. I was just wondering with the, we've added a couple of deaths, and I'm wondering if they're tracking underlying conditions with those deaths or vaccinations related, if they had any vaccinations. Do you know?
Yes, the three recent tests we had were all associated at Cape Cod Hospital. So we're not sure if they really moved right from a nursing home, because we would have picked it up in the nursing home first. But yes, most of all the COVID deaths come in with some underlying conditions, whether it's pneumonia, respiratory failure. So they do come in with other underlying conditions. If they've had that all along, I don't know. But we do get the underlying conditions that come in.
Okay. And I know I asked you this last week, has there been any more clarity in the testing around whether or not we know these new cases are related to the P1 variant?
We believe they are. Sometimes the test results doesn't say when it comes a positive case whether they have the variant. Sometimes it takes 2 to 3 weeks for that sub variant to be tested to show up. So it's something that we have to look at. We are concerned that, it is community spread. So we do kind of look at that to see how that's going. But so we need to look at that harder, and that's something the state's looking at. I don't know, Hillard, if you'd like to say anything to that.
Yeah, Tracy, I mean, obviously there are thousands of new positive tests, and the issue is you just can't test all these people for a variant. It's really sophisticated testing, so they are picking them out from location a little bit, but those aren't numbers that are helping us right now very much.
So, but there, I mean, you have to believe that potentially there is that, because of our percentages in relation to the rest of the state would. So, I mean, it would be, I guess it's just hard to know. Obviously everybody should take precautions and continue to wear their masks so there isn't spread, but if we knew, I guess the question would be, would we be doing anything differently? If we knew that we had a cluster of the P1s that have a higher transmissibility rate, would you recommend other precautions?
Yes, we've reached out to different ethnic communities within town, and we're working with them closely to make sure they're getting vaccinated. And we've been talking to a few of the leaders, and those people are getting vaccinated. They're doing well. That's our working group at a lot of areas, but it's also spread out from that group to more in town also. So that's why we have to mention it to everyone in town. It's just not one particular group that we're seeing it in now.
Tracy, this is an epicenter, certainly for the P1 variant. We really haven't gotten a very good explanation from the state why we haven't increased the vaccines here until very recently, or the testing. So only recently we've had more testing. So that's added to the problem significantly.
But we believe that the vaccine is still effective with the variants. Is that?
Yes, to date, that's correct. There is one variant that's in the state. I think it's originated perhaps from the UK, that seems probably twice as likely to infect other people. As if everyone followed the precautions, we wouldn't have this problem, regardless of which variant we're dealing with. If people maintain their distance, wore masks, we're washing their hands frequently, we would not be in the situation we're in now. And with all the fatigue people are experiencing after a whole year, that's also causing more havoc here, unfortunately.
My last question is related to the comment that keeps coming up about the fourth wave. I'm just trying to figure out if we're in the midst of a third wave, what data they have to predict that that's even a possibility. It just, I wonder how they can predict that without even having us be able to contain the wave that we're in.
Director Murphy, I'm sure you have the answer.
There may not be, it's kind of a
There we
rhetorical
go.
question.
No, that was a good one. I thought we were doing good when we saw the third wave and we're taking all our precautions. And all of a sudden I'm listening and CDC's talking about the fourth wave. And I said, I didn't even see the third wave come by, CDC.
Oh,
They're
good.
jumping
So
right
it's
ahead.
that makes me feel better because I thought the same thing. And, I guess when, I don't know, I get a little bit concerned with, obviously I agree with the precautions and getting through this, but I think to some extent, sometimes too, we're projecting a little bit of not fear, but uncertainty. And it would be nice to feel like this would be the last wave, that perhaps at some point in time, we are going to move past this as a society, as a community, where our businesses and people can get back to living a normal life. So when you hear that, it just, we're dealing with a lot of emotional issues with people and the shut-ins and people that are afraid to go out. And so when you hear that, it's depressing. Honestly, it's depressing. And what do we have that to look forward to still, and we're not even out of the third one. So I think we should be very careful about making such predictions if we don't have data to show something, crystal ball. So those are my comments, but I appreciate all your work.
And you see those projections are coming out of CDC. So, that's just what we're following and just see what CDC puts out.
Well, thank you both very much.
One thing to keep in mind is people are just tired of, taking precautions. We all are. One of the problems is people passing on the virus to other people, even if they've been vaccinated. It's been very difficult to get people to wear masks. And once again, I said this last meeting I was at, was someone who's been vaccinated still can get infected. They just don't get sick, but they transmit the virus to others. And so taking the precautions are key here, as Bruce mentioned.
Okay, thank you. Eric Tolley. Eric, do you have any comments, questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, Mike Stone.
I want to first start with a point Dr. Bosky just made. And I want to make this very clear for really the public's benefit. People believe, I think many people believe, are under the assumption that they're perfectly safe if they get, let's take the 2-shot virus, because the other one's on hold right now. But if they get the Moderna or the Pfizer vaccine, the 2 inoculations, that they're all set and they can't get sick. And you're saying that's not true. They can still get the virus. They're just not going to get really sick from it, perhaps, but they can still transmit it to other people. Isn't that correct?
Yes, it is. People feel they're sort of done. When I volunteer giving vaccinations to people after they get their second injection, they assume they're fine as they go out the door, that they're protected immediately. It doesn't work that way.
So, even with these variants, as far as what I've been reading, if somebody does get infected, the person that has received the injections, they're probably not going to get critically ill or hospitalized or anything like that, but they can still get ill from the infection. Isn't that the case?
That's exactly the case. The vaccines have been very successful keeping people out of the hospitals. And it's just, these people are not going into critical care. They're not dying. In that sense, the vaccinations have been fabulous.
Now, you mentioned something that you don't really hear a lot about in the health circles anymore. When the virus first visited us, people were talking about and almost obsessed with washing their hands. You don't hear that being very much emphasized precaution anymore. People generally know that you should distance, wear a mask, but you talk about are there many, is there much data or science to support the fact that this virus can be easily transmitted through touch or touching surfaces or things like that?
Michael, you're making a very good point. Yes, that's the case. I mean, this is generally just transmitted through the air. It can hurt, obviously, the frequent hand washing keeps people, when they touch their face with the virus, it's less likely if they've washed their hands. Yes, it can be introduced to your body from your hands into your, usually it'd be into your nose, but much less likely than the transmission that occurs through the air. So you're absolutely right.
But people subconsciously do that. They put their hands in various parts of their face and can pick it up that way.
We all can, yes.
Bruce, I'm in a bit of a logical quandary as to identifying cases as being spread through households. And I guess as a preface to my question, maybe I could show a hypothetical situation. Suppose I go and I visit my friend Dan Horgan, and I subsequently develop the coronavirus. I'm not going to know it immediately. So I go home and I have various family members and I come down with the virus. Now, somebody's going to question me as to where I've been, correct?
Correct.
And I'm going to say, well, I was at Dan Horgan's house. And so then you're going to check him out. But how do I not know that somebody in my family already had the virus and they infected me? And I, in turn, maybe infected Dan Horgan because the symptoms aren't shown immediately.
Yeah, and that's the tough part because you're not going to get the symptoms for a few days. So they're going to ask you, where have you been the last 3-4 days, and who have you visited and where have you gone? And you can't remember everybody you talked to or where you went. Not everybody's saying where they've been and what places they've been to. Tracing, it sounds good. They'll ask a few questions and they'll try to follow up of where have you been, and then call those people. But I'd say not all the towns are just overwhelmed, and if you only have 1 or 2 nurses doing it, or we have the state contact traces, they might only go back to 1 visit. So you might not have visited over to Dan's home for 3 days ago. They might just picked up who you visited the last day or so. So it's not getting out to where everybody thinks they're going to talk to everybody that you met over the last 4 days.
Yeah, and I guess the follow-up hypothesis to that would be if you had 3 people in a house and they didn't go outside, they did not leave that house, or didn't even go pick up the mail. It's unlikely that any of them would be infected, assuming they weren't infected to begin with.
Right.
So these people in these households are getting it somewhere.
Well, what we're seeing in the households, like you said, they brought it in.
Household, of course it is, because if I come into the house with an infection, guess what?
Right.
I'm in close contact with these people I live with, so
Right.
there's a high likelihood I'm going to infect them.
You're going to affect them, and you might not affect all of them. You only might affect 2. We're seeing it go right through several households, and before you infected them, before they came down with the symptoms, they might have went out and visited their little group of friends. So then that goes back to their households. So you're affecting people you might not have picked it up at a particular business or something.
I guess the only safe thing is to follow the precautions and get the shots, right?
Yes. And with more vaccine on the way and the county getting more, I think that's a good sign that we're getting it out here on the Cape, and with hopefully more to come.
Do you have, last question, do you have any sense of what's going on with the J&J? Are we on like a temporary hold? I understand there was 5 cases. They documented of blood clots as a side effect. They believe, or at least they believe was a side effect.
Right.
With that kind of a small sampling, given the breadth of the J&J inoculations, do you think this is going to be a short-term holdup?
I don't think, Bruce, or I know that, and certainly the CDC doesn't seem to know it yet. There were 6 cases that were identified, and keep in mind that came out of over 6 million injections.
Right.
Just to let you know, and the signs and symptoms began about 2 weeks or so after the person was vaccinated. And as for the person, they were all women, and they were fairly young. I think it was like 20 to 45-year-olds or so. So very rare. What's quite upsetting is it's difficult to treat. Essentially, it's complicated. There's a thrombus, or you can think of it as a clot that's in the blood channels that go from your heart, rather from your brain to your heart. So it's the return blood from your brain to your heart. And what happens is this clot forms and interferes with the return of the blood. And with that increased pressure, the blood can leak and you're essentially having a stroke. And the most common sign people of these individuals has been a really severe headache and increased pressure on their brain. On top of that, these people also have a decreased number of platelets, and those are the blood cells that are used to form clots. So those are your platelets. So normally when someone has a clot, one thing you may give them is a drug like heparin to kind of break up the clot. Well, if you don't have very many platelets, which helps to stop bleeding, you could increase the bleeding. So very difficult to treat. So that's why the pause went into effect pretty quickly. When and where that will go, we don't know.
I just want to say something. Well, the
Go ahead, Tracy.
news story that I heard today talked about the pause was related more towards education of physicians in how to recognize and treat. I'm not sure that it's going to be a wholesale, don't use the vaccine. They want to educate the physicians on how to spot the issue and how to treat it.
That's both. Certainly the pause is in case there is a connection. We don't know that it is, that Johnson & Johnson is causing it. There is a clot problem that's associated with the AstraZeneca vaccine that's in Europe. But sure, educating the clinicians would be very helpful. Lots of people come into an emergency department with severe headaches. Very few of them would have this disease entity.
With this is too, Dr. Bosky, wasn't there some correlation with the 6 using birth control, and there's a correlation with clotting with, or higher risk for clotting with birth control alone? So it may not even have anything to do with Johnson & Johnson.
I'm not aware of that. Bruce, do you know or not?
No, I haven't heard that. Information is still coming out, so I'm sure
We should hear something tomorrow, at least from the FDA and the CDC tomorrow.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Hillary.
Thank you.
And we'll see you later.
Yes.
Okay, the next item on the agenda for tonight is an item from Jade St. Onge, a Girl Scout Gold Star project. And I'm wondering, Kyle, if we could promote Jade to our meeting. And
Hello. Can you hear
Hi
me?
there. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for writing to us and having such an interest in this problem. So I think
Yes,
for the,
so excited.
so we're going to let you make a brief presentation and share with us. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
Are you ready? Do you have a
Yes,
presentation?
may I
for us,
share my
Chase?
screen?
Kyle, can you accommodate sharing the screen?
Yep, she's able to.
Okay.
All right, perfect. One second, I'm having technology issues.
That's okay. We have them all the time.
We were forwarded her. We might be able to help you out.
I think I have it. All right,
Give it a shot. Can you try it again?
is it working?
It's starting.
All right.
That's
Might
great.
just take a second. Can you see it?
Not yet.
Black. All right.
It's black right now.
It's okay.
While it's waiting to load, can you just, there it is.
There it is. We got it.
Bingo.
All right. Perfect. So my name is Jade Sinanj. I'm 17 years old and I'm in the Girl Scouts. I've been in the Girl Scouts for about 10 years. This year I'm working on my Gold Award. The Gold Award is the highest achievement that a Girl Scout can get. And for my Gold Award project, I want to implement fishing line receptacles across Cape Cod to help reduce the pollution. There's my table of contents with what I'm going to talk about tonight. So just an overview on my project. The receptacles are little PVC pipe receptacles I can show you afterwards that will take in the monofilament and different types of fishing line so we can get it out of the ocean and recycled where people don't have that. So I think litter is not only an environmental issue, but it's an enduring and economic aesthetic issue as well. Some issues with fishing line is that it can be ingested by wildlife and then it will not be properly digested. It takes about 600 years to decompose, and even then it turns into microplastic and then is ingested by other animals, which then kills them. It has a short shelf life. It takes about 2 to 3 years for monofilament to go bad, and fluorocarbonate or carbon takes about 7 to 8 years to go bad, which just means you won't be able to use it to its fullest extent. It can also cause ghost fishing, which is abandoned fishing line that gets stuck on a rock or stuck on something in the water, which then gets tangled up with all the animals and plants in the ocean. Some problems that I want to solve are the abundance of fishing line on the beaches, in the water, and on docks. I think this is because people don't have a place to properly dispose of their fishing line and or not be properly educated on how this can affect the environment negatively. My project objective is by implementing fishing line receptacles at popular fishing locations and educating the public on the negative effects, the amount of fishing line on the beaches and waterways will be reduced. So my target audience for this project is fishermen, boaters, environmentalists, and the general public. I think everyone should know about how this affects the environment negatively. My plan is to find popular fishing locations with large masses of litter. I've been working closely with IFA and the Cape Wildlife Center I will then contact organizations and companies to empty and recycle the fishing line from each receptacle. I haven't done that yet because of COVID. So right now, my family and friends will be emptying and recycling them. I will then build a website with information about each receptacle and how to recycle fishing line if you don't have a receptacle. Then I'll install them and add an informational plaque with a QR code to the website so that you can learn more. After presenting everything with my ideas on how to execute the solution, I would like to request permission to implement fishing line receptacles throughout Yarmouth. I'm all done. I can share a prototype of my project if
All right,
you'd
can you
like.
do that right now, Jade? Can you show that to us?
Yes. So there's a few around the Cape. Here, I might need to back up.
That was great. We can
This is
see
where
it.
the fishing line would go in. And then at the bottom, it has little drain holes so that the water won't get stuck inside.
That's terrific. That's great. I know our natural resources director, Carl Von Hohn, is here, and I know he's become aware of your project, and I want to get him, before I go to the board members for any questions that they might have, I'd like to get Carl on the meeting so that he can update us on his work on this. Carl?
Yeah, of course.
Good evening. I had a very nice discussion with Ms. St. Ange in reference to her proposal and project. We do have a number of these line receptacles here in town, but we sure could use more. So I look forward to working with Ms. St. Ange and moving forward. And this is a wonderful opportunity for the town to have volunteers that are willing to help provide receptacles to collect this fishing line at our boat ramps and fish piers.
That's great. Thanks, Carl. I'm going to go around the board to see if they have any comments and questions. Tracy, I'll start with Tracy Post.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your presentation, Jade. I think it's wonderful that you're
Thank you.
aware of environmental issues and trying to find solutions. It's great. My question really is, it's interesting to know that we have some of these already. How many people misuse them in terms of trash? I worry about people putting other things in them. And how often do we as a town clean them out and recycle the material now? Who does that? And
That's probably a question for Carl. Carl, can you answer that question?
Yes, that was a little broken up on this end, but the town does maintain those receptacles that we collect the line in. We do empty them and check on them to make sure they're not full, and if so, we do empty them. Yes, it's amazing how what gets put down into these receptacles. In many circumstances, it's not necessarily pleasant. One of the things that we have done in several of ours is put a dowel in the center so coffee cups and larger items can't be pushed down in there, and providing a much smaller opening that fishing line can be just pushed in versus larger trash items.
Thank you.
I hope that answered your question.
it does, Jade.
I also do have an answer to that as well. I was also going to contact some scout troops to help out with that. So it's not all in the town. And I also spoke with the Salties. I don't know if you're aware of them. I think they're a community service group. And one of the members said that he thinks that's something that's right up their alley and that they'd love to help.
Okay. I just get concerned about obviously liability and somebody getting stuck with some type of fishing hook in there, or how is that? I mean, I know they're volunteering. I just am curious on how that would work, Carl.
I'd encourage them to do what we do, is put a pair of leather gloves on as we start to pull the line out from underneath. In many circumstances, we don't find tackle such as hooks in the receptacles. Most fishermen would cut the hooks off and reuse them. So I cannot remember the last time I did come up with a hook in the receptacle when we were going through collecting the recyclable.
I'd just be concerned about needles of some sort and just being very cautious and careful. That's my.
And
how are you funding, Jade? How are you funding these receptacles?
So I am working closely with IFA, one of the members. She's on the fundraising team and like part of that. So she was going to help me fund. And I was also looking to contact local bait and tackle shops and seeing if they would help and give money towards funding it. I was also going to go to PVC piping locations like plumbing stores and seeing if they would like reduce the price or fund it.
Okay. And how often do you think you'll be your plan is to clean these?
I was thinking bi-weekly or monthly, depending on how often they fill up. I think it really depends on the location and how often it's being used.
Okay. And my last question is, have you worked with Carl to identify specific areas or specific places where we would want to launch these?
Did you hear
we
that?
we did briefly discuss that in our phone call, and that we would be sitting down and identifying the specific location so she could plan that out.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jade. Thank you, Carl.
I'm going to
Thank
ask
you for your questions.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask Eric Tolley if he has a question.
Just a comment. Thank you, Jade. You know, as a fisherman myself, I am aware that this problem exists, and I have seen these receptacles, and I admittedly did not know what they were for, but now I do. So I understand that a part of your proposal is an education campaign. So that will be great for people like me who have no idea what these PVC things at the beach or near the ponds are. So I congratulate you on your efforts. Like I said, it's a noble cause, and I wish you luck with it.
Thank you so much.
That's great. Mike Stone, any comments or questions, Mike?
First of all, Jade, congratulations on your focus on doing something positive for your community and for the compelling environmental interests that are at stake here. There's not many people of your age that are as conscious about these types of issues, and so it's a really wonderful thing to see someone as young as yourself have this kind of an orientation and focus. Eric kind of led into the comment that I was going to have. I'm wondering how many people discard fishing line because they just don't care, or because they just don't know any better. And I think that anything like this, any environmental initiative, has to have a significant education piece to it. I see on Facebook images and videos of people who go out and pick up trash around beaches and neighborhoods, and they publicize what they're doing, and I think that has effects on other people. There's a lot of people who will volunteer, but they need to be alerted to the need for their services, or they just have to have somebody to kind of ignite the fire underneath them. And I think the educational piece with a Facebook site, something like that, and explanations of the potential environmental damage and the benefits to the environment of following your lead, I think is going to be really important for the success of this project. And you got a good man in Carl. You stay close to him. He'll give you really good advice. And I think you'll be able to be successful with what you're doing.
Thank you so much. I agree 110%. I'm going to put an informational plaque not only on my actual receptacle, but I hope to put it out on like posters and like all over the towns of Cape Cod, because I not only want to do this in Yarmouth, but I want to go to Dennis and Wellfleet and Chatham, possibly the National Seashore if they allow it.
That's great. Thank you, Mike. Dan Horgan. Dan, did you have any comments or questions for Jade?
Just that I feel like we're on America's Got Talent. I am so happy with you, Jade. I wish we had more people your age that are as involved as you've been, and I think you're a great role model for your peers. The question I had is one that you just addressed. I was looking for signage, something to help educate people what this thing is and what it's used for. If that's part of the package, I think you've got a winning combination here, and I hope this is just the first of many opportunities that we get to see you here in town getting involved with environmental issues and hopefully political ones.
Thank you so much.
That's great. And I'm going to just end this section up, Jade, once again by thanking you for all your hard work on this. And we're looking forward to working with you. I also want to commend you for your dedication to the scouting program. Girl Scouts are very, very important. In my younger days, I was very active in the Cub Scouts and the Boy Scouts, and it's very, very important in one's life. So it's great to see your commitment both to scouting and to this initiative to help improve the environment. So thank you once again on behalf of the board for all your hard work and all your initiative. And we look forward to working with you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, well, you're quite welcome. Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Have a nice night.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is an entertainment license hearing regarding Captain Parker's Pub. I see Jerry Manning is here, and I'm going to turn this section over to Mike Stone for the hearing.
Okay. I just got to find the notice.
I have it. You want me to read it for you?
All right. Thank you, Tracy.
Sure. The Town of Yarmouth Board of Selectmen Entertainment License Amendment Hearing. Town of Yarmouth, the Board of Selectmen, acting as the local licensing authority, has received an application for an amendment to the weekday and Sunday entertainment licenses from Captain Parker's Pub, Inc., 668 Route 28, West Yarmouth, 02673, to allow outdoor entertainment. The entertainment will consist of live bands, including singers and amplification system daily between the hours of 3 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. Hearing will be held on Tuesday, April 13th, 2021 via Zoom. Meeting begins at 6 p.m. Written comments will be accepted until 4:30 p.m. Friday, April 9th, 2021 in the Selectmen's office at Town Hall via the Dropbox, or can be submitted electronically to public comments at yarmouth.ma.us. Please see the posted agenda on the town website 48 hours prior to the meeting for further instructions on electronic participation.
Thank you, Tracy. So we have Jerry Manning there tonight. Hello, Jerry. How are you?
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Just Kyle, did we get any public comment on this?
I didn't see anything in the public comment email inbox, no.
Okay, so you got, as far as we know, did we get any letters, Bob? Any letters or any emails or anything like that?
No, sir.
Okay.
Not that I'm aware of.
All right, so Jerry, doesn't look like you got a lot of opposition out there so far, at least. You want to tell us a little bit about, I've read your application, but you want to tell us a little bit about what you want to do with the entertainment?
Well, certainly, we have an entertainment license on the property. You know, we have a Sunday license. But I thought it would be very nice to offer entertainment outside on the lovely deck that we have. And again, we're we are fortunate that we don't have neighbors that right next door, so I don't think it would be very loud, and I don't think it would be bothering too many people. We get many requests from both tourists and residents. People say it's such a lovely evening. Too bad you didn't have some music out here and cheer up the folks through these hard times that we're having. So we do get a lot of requests for it. And a lot of people, we have private parties out there, birthday parties and the like. And again, people request if they could have a guitar player or some very limited. We're not going to be booking the Grateful Dead or the Rolling Stones. It's going to be a very subdued type of entertainment.
Yeah, no, I'm all booked. You can't get the Stones.
Well, again,
I noticed in your application, it says live band with one piece, including singers. So is that really what you're looking for? It's like a guitar player that's going to sing, something like that?
Again, it'd be very subdued. It'd be one person strumming a guitar or that the like of that, And again, it would be very quiet.
And you're looking for the hours of 3 to 10:30?
Yes, 10:30. We figure we'd have it all wrapped up because the outside licenses, the alcohol license is only good till 11 p.m.
Right. 11 o'clock, yeah. All right, so we'll go out to the public. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to be heard on this, either in favor or against? So I don't see anybody.
We do have Tom Nicanello is raising his hand.
Okay, Tom's a 4, I believe. Tom, what would
Yes.
you like to say about this?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Stone, licensing chair for the town of Yarmouth. Tom Nicanello, representing the Chamber of Commerce here tonight in support of your petition for Captain Parker's outside weekend license for entertainment. As you know, Mr. Chairman, a lot of our towns have this, and we surely do want to bring it back in a facility like Mr. Manning's, who's been here for 30 plus years and has employed many of our community people and has the proper way of conducting business in our town. And I think this is one of the greatest moments that he could do, is come before you and get some entertainment on that beautiful deck that he has. And I'm sure all the swans and the geese won't mind at all next to Parker's River, and the bullfrogs will just keep on chirping all night. So with that, we support it, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Is anyone else?
We have a Mr. Joe Glenn is also seeking recognition.
Okay. Joe, would you like to be heard on this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I echo what Mr. Nicanello said. Obviously, Mr. Manning has run a great establishment. It looks beautiful out there, and him adding some music to it will make sweet music for the town of Yarmouth. So I don't think that anybody would be against it, and I wish him good luck.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Is there anyone else, Kyle?
Nobody else.
All right, so we'll go to the board. Does anyone on the board have questions or comments about this? We'll start with Dan Horgan.
Yes, please. Just a couple questions. Jerry, if you don't mind my asking, what nights are you envisioning having the entertainment?
Well, again, I would say mostly weekends, but in the high season, we may want to do it during the week too. It depends upon, the demand. Yeah.
And needless to say, I'm new to the board. I'm asking the fellow board members, is there a policy as far as how late entertainment licenses are generally allowed? Is any kind of policy in town that we know of that's been established?
I don't know that there's a policy per se. I think we've dealt with it more on a case-by-case basis, paying particular attention to the concerns of the neighborhood as expressed. I know we allowed, the latest one was the outdoor license down by, what was that business?
Royal 2? I think Royal 2.
No. What was Royal 2, Tracy? What was he?
On 6A, the pizza place, they had out, well, maybe that was alcohol outdoors on the deck.
Was it tugboats?
Yes.
Tugboats, yes.
Tugboats, we allowed them to go later than most, I believe. But they wanted to go even later. I think we allowed something like, or was that just alcohol service? I'm getting.
That was alcohol service.
Yeah.
No, I mean, obviously.
But Dan, you still have to take into account the anti-noise bylaw, which basically kicks in, was it after 11 o'clock? So probably, 11 would be the outside, I would think.
Right, I was more concerned about weekdays, but Mr. Manning's site is unique in that it doesn't have a lot of close neighbors, so I'm generally supportive of allowing the use, and let's just hope that we don't have any issues going forward. But I appreciate the need for outside entertainment, and Mr. Manning has been a wonderful business owner in town. Want to support him as much as we can.
I think the Loft was the last one for entertainment outside.
Yes.
Was it?
Yeah.
So Eric, do you have any comments or questions?
No questions, but I can't say no to Jerry. Captain Parker's is where I met my wife.
Oh.
And I remind Jerry most times I see him that he's welcome to accept the credit if he's willing to accept the blame. So, so with that, I have nothing else. Thank you.
There are others that might want to sue him for that, but okay, Tracy.
My only question really is the situation of the amplification. I know on the other side of Route 28, I'm not sure if you've done any preliminary testing of the amplification system. I am thinking about the Loft, and they had one issue across the street, but they were able to work through it with the neighbors, or they're in process of working through it with the neighbors. And I have no doubt that no matter what happens, Jerry, you will work with them to the best of your ability. So I saw your diagram, basically where you were planning on putting it on the patio, and if you need to come back and amend those items based on any feedback, I think, obviously we'd be open to that, because I think until you get out there and start playing, you may hear from them and need to reposition or redirect. You're very fortunate, at least on your sides, to the sides of you and directly across the street. You don't have any residential neighborhoods, so chances of it carrying that far are slim. I would hope it wouldn't be that loud, but if it is, I'm confident that you would work with them and make everybody happy. So I'm excited to see this application. I know you've probably dealt with a lot of music last year outside on your deck from the drive-in across the street. So your customers maybe had a little bit of a benefit from that, but you've invested a lot of money, and you've been a long time business owner in our community. And I think I agree with the other board members that we like to try to support people as much as we can and keep a happy medium between the businesses and the residents. So I appreciate it, and I fully support the application.
Thank you.
Hang on, I'll go to Mark.
No, I'm very supportive. This is mellow, family-friendly music, acoustic or with small amplification. So I think the impact is modest. And as Tracy said, I know Jerry's always concerned about being a good neighbor. If there's an issue, they'll address it. So I'm very supportive of this proposal and hope it all works out.
Thank you.
Okay, and for me, I agree with the members of the board. I think that it is, it's not in any kind of area where there should be any residential disturbance or anything like that. And Jerry has a great reputation as a businessman in the community, a very responsible person. And I'm sure if there are any issues that come up, he'll work to get them resolved. So I fully support the application as well.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
We have a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, we'll have a roll call vote to close the public portion of the hearing, starting with Dan Horgan,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Tracy.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. The public portion of the hearing is closed.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve the application as submitted.
Do we have a
I'll
second?
second it.
Okay, we have an a motion to approve the application as submitted and seconded. Is there any further discussion before we vote? Hearing none, I will go to the vote. It will be a roll call vote. We'll start with Tracy,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Dan Horgan,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. So it is unanimously approved. So did we have on the entertainment, Bob, do we have the certified notices on that? Or,
I don't see them. Mr. Manning, did you notify the abutters?
Yes, positively, yes.
Could you drop off the return receipts sometime? Just,
Yeah, we mailed them in.
oh, okay. I'll check tomorrow then. I'm sure there. I'll check with Vaughn tomorrow. They weren't part of my
in
life.
the pre-COVID days, we usually received them at the hearing, but I
today.
understand. So you mailed them in. That's
Yeah,
it.
I'm sure they're in. I'll check.
Okay, Jerry, you're all set. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Hope we all have a great season this summer.
And so do I.
Thank you.
Aye.
That concludes our hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the school superintendent, Carol Woodbury, with an updated presentation on the DY regional school budget. So we're going to turn it over to the DY team.
Oop, hang on.
Did we get this presentation prior to this meeting?
Yes, you should have. Can you guys?
This afternoon.
Okay. Can I just ask if people can hear me?
We can hear you. Welcome.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm having a little problem, so I had to switch over to I've been actually on with you since about 6:30, I think, but my computer seems to be unstable right now. So I do have, if I could be allowed to screen share, hopefully the computer will work because that's the only way I can screen share, but I'll talk to you through my iPad. Unless there's someone on the town side that can share the PowerPoint, and I will just say next slide, etc. I don't know.
Carol, are you all set?
Yeah, she can share. I was told she was going to share the presentation, so she has the ability to share her screen.
So you can.
I'm not seeing the share button. I'm not seeing the share button. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Carol, can you answer that question about the?
Well, I'm not looking at her tablet, so it's tough or computer, so it's tough for me to say. But everybody who's a panelist has the ability to share their screen, so it's not a capability issue.
Kyle, I just forwarded you the email, the presentation, perhaps.
Okay, I'll pull it up.
That would be great. Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate it. I don't know what's going on with my internet here tonight.
Here we go. We have it up.
Okay, thank you all very much for the opportunity to present our budget for FY22 for you this evening. I know that there might be some of my committee members that are on tonight as well. I think Joe Tierney is at least here with me, and maybe Phil Morris, I'm not sure. Next slide, please, Kyle. Even during these difficult times, our goals remain the same. Certainly to improve student achievement, to maintain and enhance our programs, to retain our students, to recruit new ones, and to return any who may have left the district for any reason. We're proud to say that even during COVID, we've had in-person learning available to our students since September 16th, with only a short 9-day pause around the December holidays when we had to do full remote. We started out with about 80% of our K-7 students attending in person, and that has grown to about 91%. At the high school, we've had our hybrid program in place since September 16th, and that was basically due to the social distancing that we had to do to keep our students 6 feet apart. But in addition to that, we've consistently had all of our specialized programs in at the high school in person 5 days a week. And we've brought back some students as needed or as requested by parents at least 4 days a week, so that on most days, more than 50% of the students are present. Although we're not required by the commissioner at this time, we're working on a plan that will bring all high school students who would like to come back in person 5 days a week around May 3rd. Next slide, please. This is the population of students that we proudly serve, whose families are residents of the towns of Dennis and Yarmouth. Next slide, please. In this slide, you can see the various populations of students that we serve in comparison to state averages. In many cases, there are state requirements that dictate how we must serve these populations of students, which can at times have an economic impact on our budget. Next slide. We're proud of the success of our students. While the chart calls out the total attending college, I would submit that other post-secondary and military enlistees are also those who are continuing their education beyond high school, bringing the total to 86%. In addition, given the economic stress that our families are under, these statistics show how many of our students avail themselves of a great 2-year public college option. This is often an opportunity to get some of the core courses under their belt while living at home and working local jobs, making a college education more affordable. In addition, we have many students who take dual enrollment at 4 Cs while in high school, which of course is another cost savings as they move on to full-time college. And as you can see, we have a close to a third of our students in advanced placement courses, another opportunity for both high-level work and the cost savings when attending college full-time. Next slide, please. To provide some context for where we stand within the districts on CAPE, these are the per pupil expenditures for the FY19 year for our Cape Cod districts. As you can see, Dennis Yarmouth is not the lowest, nor is it the highest. I believe we provide a great education for the dollars that we are provided from our 2 towns and our taxpayers. Next slide, please. We're still working off the cherry sheet provided to us with the governor's released budget. This is the revenue side of the cherry sheet. Sometimes there are changes in the numbers. After the House puts their budget together, the Senate does their budget, and finally, often there's a conference committee that puts together a final budget. I believe that the 2 houses are trying to work together right now. Did hear from one of our local citizens at the school committee meeting last night that there may be something coming out, but I have not received any notification at this point. Sometimes, you know, as I always say, the budget is just a moment in time. And sometimes these stages happen in a way that allow us to consider changes, but oftentimes they come after July 1st when we've already completed our budget process. Next slide, please. So there's also an expense side to the cherry sheet. These are the costs that are deducted directly from the state revenue by the state. While the funds do not come into the district and they don't get paid out by us, they're listed within our budget as both an expense and also the revenue side is accounted for from the state within our budget as well. As you've seen throughout the spring, the governor's budget has very little impact in terms of helping our 2 towns as the increase in revenue after expenses is just over $26,000. I know folks have said, as I said before, that there've been some announcements, and so we'll stay tuned for that. And if there's something that can help our towns, we will surely take that into consideration. Next slide, please. The budget being presented tonight was reduced by $419,056, mainly due to known retirements, bringing our total budget increase to 2.72%. The projected debt service for the new school has been added to the budget. This is shown on the assessment worksheet if you have that in your possession on line 32 and labeled as one-time interest. From the beginning of the process, we added $125,000 from E&D as district revenue. And tonight, to offset the new debt service of $747,548 and to cover our OPEB costs of $120,000, the district revenue from E&D is being increased by $867,458 for just over $992,548. Next slide, please. In the final budget that the school committee voted last night, you'll see here on the revenue that's applied, the amount that I just mentioned previously. And if you're looking at the assessment worksheet, you can see the state aid and total revenue on lines 14 and 15, and the state reimbursement for transportation is on line 39. Slide, please. This is just a pie chart breakdown of the places where we're spending the money. Certainly the huge chunk under instruction, services, payments to other schools is really related to direct costs to students. Some of the costs of having employees, you all know, insurance and benefits is the darker green piece. And so taken all together, you can see the breakdown of where everything goes. I do have the chart if you should have some specific questions about what each of those areas is. I'm happy to answer them when we get to the end. Next slide, please. In your packet, you have a series of the worksheets that lead up to the assessment. And if you're looking at the assessment worksheets in the packet, these are from lines 54 to 59, just showing you how first we start out with our net school spending amount. We take the state and district revenue off, leading to our foundation assessment. We then subtract the required local contribution, and then we have the amount that's above the required local contribution, which gets split by the agreed upon formula in the regional agreement, leaving us with our statutory assessment. Next slide, please. These pieces shown here, the statutory assessments from the others, from the previous slide. Then we add in our capital costs, this time adding in one-time interest for the new school building project and the transportation money leading up to the total operating assessment without the debt service. And again, if you were looking at the assessment worksheet, you'll see this between lines 59 and 61. Line 60 is both the capital costs and the one-time interest added together, making up the total operating budget. Next slide, please. This is the total budget that was voted by the school committee last evening. The assessment numbers in black go with this budget. As you can see, although the budget goes up from the final budget previously voted by the committee, the assessments are actually going down. I've put the previous operating assessment numbers in parentheses below, just so that you could have a picture of how the numbers are going down. And of course, because we didn't add debt into the debt service, there is no change in the debt numbers. Next slide, please. This shows in a chart form what I was just talking about on the previous slide. The final budget that the school committee voted is $328,492 more than the budget that was previously voted. As I mentioned, this was achieved by making reductions through taking into account personnel changes due to retirements and by increasing the budget by the estimated amount of this year's new debt service for the school building project. So when you net that out, the net change is the $328,000. Next slide, please. So this is to just kind of give you a little bit of a picture of the difference between the previously voted assessments and then the final vote that took place last night, and the difference in the savings. This includes the $419,000 in reductions, plus the extra E&D of $120,000 that was added to cover OPEB. And in total, between the two towns, the assessment savings is $539,056. And so that's where we are with that. Thank you. Next slide, Kyle. You're good at anticipating. This chart just shows how much E&D we would have been allowed to carry this year. It's 5% of the total budget. We did not have that much, but surprisingly, and I've mentioned this in several public meetings, the E&D that was certified was significantly closer to the 5% than we've ever seen in the past. And the reason for this was that in FY20, we received the FY19 reimbursement for transportation in FY20, as well as the FY20 reimbursement. So therefore, we had two transportation reimbursements in 1 year. And that is part of what caused the E&D to be available to us. In addition to that, as everyone knows, we went to full remote last March for the remainder of that school year. And it saved us in our facility costs. It saved us in our bus transportation. So there were a number of savings that came to be because we were in that particular period of time. In addition to that, we were fortunate to be able to get some grants from the state to help us with some of the other things that we did need to buy, such as the iPads for our students. Previously, we had not had iPads for our pre-K to 2 students, which we did need to buy, along with chargers for all of our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students, but we did not have to go into our FY20 budget for that. So it was very helpful, and also then helped us save this money to be in this kind of a position this year. So you can see these are a series of subtraction problems that end with us having a remaining balance of E&D of 1.7 million, just over. Thank you, Kyle. Next slide. I know that you folks are very in tune to what 2.5% increases look like. And so we wanted to show you how the revised assessments compared to an assessment that would be a 2.5% increase. This, of course, does not include the debt service. And one of the budget goals that we had was try to mitigate the significant increase, especially for the town of Yarmouth, but also for the taxpayers of both towns, especially during these difficult times. This does help Dennis because as we save money, we're through the use of E&D and the reductions that we've made, neither town would have to raise and appropriate money for that part of the budget or capital projects. Now, we know that in your particular case, this number is a big number. We're hoping some of the things that we've done help to mitigate that a little bit for you folks. Next slide, please. And as we all know, that typically we come to the towns for some capital requests each year that are outside the operating budget, and they're then funded per the formula that we've agreed upon in the regional agreement. After a review of our current FY21 budget, we plan to request these items that you see on the screen here tonight through some budget transfers in our current budget. One of the things that we know is that, you know, in our conversations with the employees, town administrators, and finance directors, we were kind of asked to keep our capital asks this year a little bit smaller than usual, which we did. So we just asked for our top 2 items. In other years, we might have asked for a little bit more. but we wanted to be last year and this year very conscious of what was going on in our two communities. By taking this and asking for it in our own budget this year, doesn't raise the cost of our budget, uses some of the places where we've had some savings because we've had grants that we could spend. And I believe it will help the towns because this is not money that you would have to raise and appropriate to help the school in this regard. So for us, it helps us because we would have the opportunity to get started on these projects now. It would be very, very helpful. There's going to be a lot to do this summer, especially as we come back to in-person school for the fall. And the sooner we get going on these projects, the better off we will be as far as what we need to get done in the district. Next slide, please. This shows the amount of money that will not be requested from the two towns for our operating budget or debt service. So we obviously won't be asking for the capital costs that you saw in the previous slide, and we won't be asking for the interest costs for that first year of the new debt service that is just coming due for the first time. Again, I know that when you saw the number on the prior slide, there's still money that needs to go toward the school budget, but we wouldn't be asking for these in addition to that. So we're hoping in some small way this helps. The total the district is taking off the original spending request from the towns is $1,278,025. And if you take into account the reductions that we made of just over 419,000, it's almost 1.7 million as far as a reduction goes. So next slide, please. So here's just the summary of the actions that I've mentioned throughout the presentation. And just for your review. And next slide. This was the final voted budget and the assessments for the school district. And at that point, the next slide just says questions. So if you want to take that off, we'll be happy to see if you have any questions or any other ways that we can help the town.
Very good. Thank you, Carol. Before I go to the board members, I just want to just check in with our town administrator. And I see he has had his hand up, so I'm going to turn the floor over to Bob for any questions and comments.
Yes, I want to make sure I'm not muted or anything here.
Hear you.
You can hear me. First and foremost, I need to thank Mrs. Woodbury for all the work that she has done personally to try to mitigate the impacts of the budget increases on both towns, really, but for me specifically, the town of Yarmouth. And secondly, I was very thankful and impressed with the communication level that I received. You know, I've only been here for a little over a week, but I think we've had some very strong communications that just, happened that I started at a real pinch point in this process. And I know Ed has done, Mr. Santio, a tremendous amount of work with the school department on researching all of these issues, but everything just came into very sharp focus over the last many days. And if I could just characterize for 1 second, some of our own particular issues, I think it was clear from the presentation and the materials that you've seen that the instructional services in the school budget really had a fairly modest increase for the ensuing year. It's less than 3%. I think what happened was Yarmouth once again got caught in that shift where our student population either isn't declining as fast as Dennis, or we're picking up students relative to Dennis, and that combines with the increase in the school department to make a situation that is more difficult for the town in terms of us raising our share of the assessment. And with those modest increases overall in instructional services, I mean, there weren't a lot of additional cuts that could be made to the budget. The superintendent has identified those and, I guess made an additional over 400,000 cuts. The real issues that we had that I felt there was a lot of communication on, we covered how there's maybe a slightly historically high level of the excess and deficiency funds, that E&D at 2.7 plus. And in the original budget, a very modest amount of that was used to lower the assessments. And what a lot of our communications with the superintendent's office have been surrounding the town's earlier request to potentially use a larger amount of those funds in a way that would support one-time expenses that would help lower our assessment. And I think all of the detail that you reviewed on that, clearly the largest portion of that is by adopting that 747,548 in debt for the district. That was funds that the town was going to have to raise in taxes under a debt exclusion. And by shifting that into the E&D, it is a good safety valve to have a one-time source to somewhat lower that E&D so it doesn't get too high, but it also saves the taxpayers in Yarmouth directly in that amount of $485,900. That was the amount that we would have had to raise for that. In addition, we asked for, there was $530,000 worth of capital debt, of which 373,000 of that was directly attributed to the town of Yarmouth that we were going to have to raise. And by placing those funds in the FY21 budget and not having the town raise it, it's an interesting situation in that while the assessment itself didn't decline, there's $859,000 in real money that the town avoids these costs that we were otherwise going to have to raise. And so, clearly we went to a situation on, the use of the E&D out of 2.7, there's almost 1.3 million supporting the budget. There's an additional effort to cover the debt in the current year budget. So what that means for us is that with the board's action last week in approving that modest amount for the override question of 420,000, those funds will replace a portion of that 485 that the town had to raise for the debt. And what that does is it makes it so with that 420,000 and these reductions, it enables the town to squeak by with a balanced budget. And I've gone over these numbers a few different times. Ed Centio and I have sat down with them, and he's been a tremendous resource. So I feel that with these actions, given the way the budget sits right now, it's clear the school department has taken, I think, almost every step that they can take to try to put the town in the best position that we can have a balanced budget. And I think that does balance the budget. The one thing that we will need to do is increase their budget request slightly so that that debt, as it has been described, can be incorporated into the school budget and they can pay it. And if they pay it with their E&D funds, that's a situation that I think benefits the town. So working with Mr. Centio, we'll have in the budget recommendation that amount that covers the debt plus the operating assessment, and it will be with the potential override, a balanced budget. And the other sort of positive news is that the override was kept to an amount that is small enough that in the event that it does not pass, it will cause, some financial harm, but not the type of thing that will be, laying off people or having massive reductions in town services. So overall, I'm satisfied with the entire budget. And I do thank the school department and the superintendent personally for her efforts to keep us in the loop, communicate how everything was going with the budget. And so that's just a little overview from our side.
Okay, thank you, Bob. I'm going to go around to the board for any comments or questions that board members might have. I'm going to start with Eric Tolley. Eric?
Thank you. I was not part of the conversation last week because I wasn't at the meeting. So I'd like to perhaps defer, listen to what some of the other board members have to say, and then perhaps come back to me if
Okay,
necessary.
that's
Thank
fair.
you.
Thank you, Eric. Mike
I
Stone?
don't have any questions at this point, Mr. Chairman.
All right, then let me go to Dan Horgan.
Really just want to express appreciation to Carol and her staff, the school committee, for doing the hard work of making this as palatable as possible for the town of Yarmouth. I don't have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Tracy Post?
Well, I have a lot of questions. And no disrespect to Mr. Wittenauer, I appreciate your position, but our board has always taken a position on the school budget and it's not a reflection of the school, but in my opinion, it's very difficult. It's a balance between our staff that I feel that somebody needs to stick up for, that doesn't have the opportunity to spend more than 2.5%. We have a policy that anything over the 2.5% goes to an override. So, a lot of our departments need stuff. They can't have it. They can't, it's a no. Okay, we don't go to an override for them. Unfortunately, we probably should, but we can't because we need to balance everything. And my comments are no disrespect to the school and the school budget, but I really feel that it's a little bit, I guess what we're trying to sell the taxpayers is a little bit disingenuous in terms of moving pieces around. People vote for a school and interest payments, and now we're covering operating. That's not what they wanted that money to go to. We're moving it. And I think we just need to be as transparent as possible. I've followed the school budget from the beginning. I attend every meeting. I completely respect and appreciate everything that Carol has done to try to mitigate that for us and our town this year. But you know how I felt last week, and I still feel the same way. We are cutting town services over the 2.5% to pay for the school. And that's what it comes down to. Okay, if we don't have to fund the capital, there are a lot of capital items that are put off. And as soon as we take that money out of capital, they're already less money from last year. And now we take that and fund the school budget with it. That money is not going to be there next year. So we're putting ourselves in a deficit from before we even get off the dime. And I understand what we're trying to do, but we really are robbing Peter to pay Paul. It is not a long-term solution to an issue. And I feel very strongly about that. I do have one question about one of your slides. You talked about the cherry sheet choice expenses. And both of those from one year to the next were exactly the same number. And I found that interesting. I'm just not sure if maybe they don't have the current year's choice numbers, but is it possible that our choice number expenses is exactly the same 2 budget years in a row?
We didn't have those numbers. This is what was on the cherry sheets. So it's quite possible that the state just didn't have any kind of indication of what the number would be at that point.
So that's an October 1 number, Carol? Is that correct?
I'm sorry?
Those choice numbers come out, is that an October 1 number, or when does that data come out?
It probably comes out around October 1 because, we don't know from year to year who's going to choose to stay and who's going to choose to go. So that's probably why, I don't know, again, this part happened before Ken was no longer with me. So he had grabbed those off the cherry sheet. So I'm not really sure how they figure that out. I could try to find an answer for you, but that was directly off the cherry sheet.
Okay. Can you tell me what percent of increase in your budget this year is contractually obligated? What the increase in your contracts were from the last fiscal budget to this fiscal budget?
I think in most cases, they're no more than 2%.
Is that including steps? So your overall instruction budget was a 2% increase?
Oh, I can't say that. I don't have that with me right now.
So what other, you have a level service funded budget, is that correct?
Same people as next year, pretty much. There's actually a few less because sometimes we're able to take, someone's retiring and it's like, we're not going to replace that person.
Okay, so we don't know what the increase in the contractual.
Yeah, because the instruction line has many other things other than just the people. It has, you know, books and iPads and all that kind of stuff come in under instruction.
Okay.
Professional development, so on.
All right.
Everything that we could level fund was level funded or reduced. Only the
how much of the 2.78% increase is our share of the shift?
Yes, yeah, I did have a slide on that, but since I'm not able to share my screen, I'm sorry, but I did have a slide on that. The shift is, in fact, let me just grab it. I think I have it in my materials here. I believe there's a 2.2% shift.
Because when I looked at the chart that you had presented a few meetings ago and the total number of students for Yarmouth, it had decreased. So,
no. Well, there's a decrease in students overall in the district because of what's gone on with I think primarily what's gone on with COVID. A lot of kids, you know, a lot of parents have decided to keep their kids home. Some people didn't send their kindergartners this year. There are a lot of things that happened that made the enrollment look really not good. Hang on, pull it up on my screen. I can give you the real story.
I know at our meeting last week, Ed had mentioned the shift number, and that played into the board's, I think, opinion on an override number, but I don't have it off the top of my head.
Yep, I have it. It's just booting up here.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I would have left it open, but I since I couldn't share the screen, I thought, well, why am I leaving this open?
Well, those are all my questions for now. Like I said, I've been watching the budget process, and you know, Carol, I know it's been an extremely difficult year, and we did at a previous meeting offer our condolences on Ken, but I think it's important that we do that directly to you, and I'm sure it's been very difficult. You did a great job with your presentation. I know you've had him alongside you to do that for you all along, and I'm sure it's been a struggle. So
it was. So Tracy, let me just give you the numbers. I do have them here.
Yeah.
The 5-year rolling average in the enrollment is 67.0832% for Yarmouth. And that is different from last year's rolling average was 66.2106. And if we were using the straight up enrollment instead of the 5-year rolling average, you guys would be at 69.2294%. So it's a shift of just over 2.2% on the ledger. So technically speaking, Dennis is picking up 2.2% more than they typically would have if we didn't have the 5-year rolling average. And as you all recall, that was intended to kind of help smooth things out as the enrollment shifted. But again, and I did hear, I know Senator Sear was certainly looking into this, that they're actually putting together like a pothole account for the state because of the state has lost significant enrollment across the state. And everybody is thinking that this is a lot to do with COVID. And when we reopen, we may have many more students than we anticipated. As I say, I do know that people have, they've formed some homeschool groups. Just to give you an example, we typically have in the range of like only 30 homeschoolers. This year we have 100. So, whether or not those kids will come back to school, some have already actually come back. But those are the kinds of things that make this year's enrollment kind of worrisome in the sense of, is it really accurate for what we will see in the fall? So I hope that.
How did you project any of your federal COVID funds in your budget at all?
We took out everything that we had initially projected that we would need next year once we found out that we had the COVID money. Which is also one of the reasons why we, I don't know if I said this before, but why we have some money in our current budget that we see that we have some lines that are trending well because we've been able to spend all grant money first. And so we anticipate a lot of the things that we're thinking about doing coming from the COVID money. We took all of that out of the budget already.
So with all that coming out, how do you explain the 2.7% increase overall then? If we're having
I don't think we really had that much stuff in the budget to begin with because we had
expenses too, right? So there wouldn't be anything that would be reoccurring, right?
I'm sorry, say it again.
They would be one-time expenses you would have removed, right?
Right, correct. And so part of I'll give you an example. One of the things that we needed this year for our COVID waiting rooms were medical assistants. So we had initially put the medical assistants back in the budget. But once we found out that and this happened pretty early on in the budget, once we found out that we would be getting some more COVID money, we took those medical assistants back out of the budget and said, look, we can pay for those in our COVID money that's coming through. And so those are the kinds of things, the PPE stuff that we have to buy, hand sanitizer, extra cleaning, all those kinds of things. We did not add more money into the budget for them. We were anticipating that there would be some more COVID money. So some things we didn't add in, but the personnel we were concerned about. But now we're not concerned about that anymore because we know we're going to get some more COVID money. And that's the place to take it so it doesn't have impact on the towns. And those will be one-time things, hopefully. But we do know that, as you talked early on in your meeting with Bruce and with the doctor about COVID, it's not going away anytime soon. So we are preparing for what we might use the COVID money for going forward.
So early on in one of your presentations, when you were first building your budget, you're building it on today's current that at that moment in time, as you say, recommendations in terms of spacing. What kind of philosophy have you built the current budget on in terms of spacing?
That's the current budget is built on going back to school like normal. And if we need additional personnel because we can't, we're going to take it out of COVID.
Okay. All right. You also had a nice presentation on potential, the Student Opportunity Act and some of the programs that you were hoping to implement with that. And where are we at with that? I know last night there was some comment about Student Opportunity Act money not being what you thought it was. Were the changes that you were potentially trying to make built into your budget, or is it separate? Or it's on hold until the funds come.
Yeah, thank you. I really felt that that was going to come as a separate grant, and that was why we had to submit our proposals to DESI. Hearing that, I did ask Senator Sear about it at one point, because especially when I saw the governor's budget and saw 26,000, and I thought, I submitted a plan for $325,000. So how could I possibly do that with $26,000? If it's coming through Chapter 70, unless there's a significant increase, as one of our citizens seems to think there might be, we did not build anything for the Student Opportunity Act into this budget. However, we do believe, because a lot of our pieces were around mental health, and we're looking at possibly some social workers and folks like that to assist us and mainly assist our students next year as they come back in person. We feel that that again would come out of COVID money.
It would be great if you had the potential to be able to move forward on some of those initiatives, regardless of the state, especially in a one-time, I guess, trial to see, you know, of.
Yeah. And the other thing about the COVID money, we're not sure how it's all going to play out yet. But in conversations with the commissioner, the superintendents are being led to believe that some of the COVID money, we might be able to string it all the way out to 2025. If that's the case, we may be able to have some of these, like, say, for example, the mental health services covered by COVID for a few years, 22, 23, 24. You know, if that happens, that would be fantastic. Because then obviously we wouldn't have to have it built against the budget, and then we see where we are with things at that point in time. And, you know, maybe by then things are smoothed out a little bit, and we won't really even need to put it in the budget. We'll see, you know, time will tell, and so many things change.
Yeah, well, and that's the other thing about this budget, is built on a very preliminary, you know, state budget that I feel like as time goes on, a clearer picture is going to come out. And, you know, even in the House and the well, not the House, the bill that's on the floor now, I mean, there's a lot more potential than what was already. So this is what happens, you know, we build these budgets and we have to go for overrides, and then sometimes it pans out where, you know, we get more money from the state or less, unfortunately, but you know, that's just a chance we have to take. But I think, you know, to the extent that we could wait it out, I think the better off we might be. And again, my issue is more with this, you know, you did the right thing by building your budget on one-time things that aren't going to affect you in the future. Unfortunately, the town isn't doing the same thing. So that's really where my issue is. That's my only comments. Thank you.
Okay, let me go back around. Eric, I'm going to come back to you. Do you have any more?
No, that wasn't particularly helpful in helping me understand what happened last week. So I guess I'll have to go back and watch the tape. So I don't have any questions at this point.
Okay. Thank you, Eric. Any other board members have any follow-up questions, comments? Any further comments at all from our town administrator? Is there anything that we've missed or that needs to be clarified before we move on? No? Okay.
So much. I just thank the board, and also I want to welcome Bob on board and say hi again to Bob Lawton, our old friend. Not old Bob, just a longtime acquaintance. But you know, I have appreciated, you know, as Bob said, we've only been working together a week, but I have appreciated the conversations that we've had, and I think we've come to as good a solution as we can. And just to your comments, Ms. Post, related to, you know, how things change in the budget. The good news about that is more monies in E&D next year, then we have some options. Should the budget rise too much, we can, you know, look again for those one-time pieces that we can help reduce our budget and at the same time help the towns and the taxpayers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for being here tonight. We appreciate the presentation. We know there's still some moving pieces here, and we'll continue to keep in close touch with you in your office as things unfold. So thank you again.
Thanks very much. Have a good evening.
You too. All right, the next item on the agenda is, we put this on because this is the Eversource item. And the Eversource spraying discussion. Before we start the discussion, let me just ask Bob, did you want to, we have Bruce Murphy back. I think we wanted to have at least a brief summary of what the other boards have said. And maybe just start off with the comments and concerns by the other boards, just so that we're up to speed with what other boards for the town of Yarmouth are saying regarding this proposal for this year. Bruce? Can you hear us, Bruce Murphy?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to hear from you. I understand the Board of Health has written some strong concerns regarding the proposal by Eversource in terms of spraying herbicide along the right of way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the Board of Health reviews this each year that the town sends, the state MDOT, Mass Department of Agricultural and Resources sends out a request to the town, and the Board of Health reviewed it at their meeting earlier in March and issued a letter of concern and no spraying to both Eversource and MDOT. And that letter was dated March 8th, and it, I believe, is included in your packet.
Yep, we also have
obviously the Board of Health's concern is the spraying of a herbicide within the town's aquifer protection district. And I think we have a few maps if you want us to show us. Kyle, we've had prepared that we've got within our packet. We can quickly go through them if you like.
I think it would be helpful to see where the rights of way are in their proximity to the town's public water supplies.
Okay.
I think that
Kyle
would be particularly helpful.
Yep. This is the overall aquifer protection district we have in blue, where our town well fields are. All the little dots are wellheads. So this is basically in the Mid-Cape area where all the town wells are. As the town was developed, obviously the town was developed along the south on the water and left the middle of the Cape for the town well fields, which were then developed at a later date. So what we can see is it's kind of hard to tell, but I've got Kyle, if you can just point out, it's up top here where the line runs through. Yep, right. Yep. Go from, oh, there you go. Yeah, there you go. If you can just go from Barnstable to Yarmouth, just go right down there. So you can see where that runs right through our well fields and becomes close. It's in the aquifer protection district and obviously becomes close to a couple well pump stations themselves. So that's the aquifer protection district. The other line is the railroad spur going through the town also. So that's the area that we have a lot of the aquifer protection district regulations through zoning and Board of Health.
So my understanding, Bruce, is that the principal concerns by the town committees have consistently been over the years the proximity of the right of way and the spraying to public water supply wells. Is that safe to say?
Right. And that's what's showing right there. If we can go a little bit more detailed, Kyle, the next two plans. Yep, that just shows a black and white, but you can skip that one, Kyle. Go right to the next one. This is the ponds where you can also see it. There we go. You can just point out the line going through. Yep, it's kind of a topo. So you can see conservation areas besides the well fields where this goes through. And I know Kelly from Conservation had also submitted a letter of concern. If you can go to the last one, last two, this goes through the up to Dennis, and then the last two will show the well field. The last two slides will show the well fields. This is starting on the Barnstable side, where you can see this is a well field just on Union Street. And then the next slide will show the two well fields closer off the North Dennis Road. This particular well field, well 21, you can see goes into the right-of-way spraying the 400-foot radius zone 1. So what they will do is Eversource will put a stop, no spray zone on both sides of that 400-foot zone, but it's still within the town's aquifer protection district.
Okay.
So based on all this information and review, we also have a few houses that have private well water that abut the high lines, and we noted, we included that in the letter of concern that Eversource needs to also check with the water department if there's any other private wells within their spray zone.
Thanks,
And we
Bruce.
also made, besides that, we've made a few other Board of Health recommendations that that when they do start spraying is to let people know ahead of time. If they can give them a 30-day notice and 48-hour notice with maybe a rolling notification. So if somebody wants to get in ahead of time to take things in or something, they're able to put that notice online. So it's a position the Board of Health has taken the past several years, expressing a concern for spraying within the town's aquifer protection district.
Thanks, Bruce. Before I go around the board, I just wanted to just recap. In your packet is the Eversource petition, the letters from the Board of Health, I believe, as well as the Conservation Office, and then there's copies of a prior resolution. And I think that was first drafted. Probably Eric Tolley's probably done this several times. But there's one going back to 2010. So I just asked, just to facilitate discussion for the board, I asked the town administrator just to draft a resolution similar to the ones, at least the one done in 2010, but a resolution similar to what we've expressed in the past. So that's what's in the packet. So the question before the board would be, before we start a discussion, would be ultimately if the board's interested in submitting once again another resolution to Eversource or the Department of Agriculture, excuse me, expressing the town's concerns about what's being proposed. So let me just go around to the board members, starting with Mike Stone. Mike, do you have any comments, concerns?
No, I support what the other town departments have done and what this board has done in the past. I think there are some really critical concerns that the town has that should be addressed. I'm not so sure there'll be a great result as a consequence of it, but I don't think we should stand idly by.
Well, the other thing, let me just point out, the other thing that's going on is Brewster's actually considering once again restarting litigation, and the town may very well be reaching out to other municipalities to see if they may be interested in joining suit. It's conceivable if the board wanted to at least consider or engage in some dialogue to find out more about joining the suit. That's certainly an area to explore. I'm not proposing it. I'm just suggesting that that would be perhaps something else in addition. I do know that the Brewster suit did for a while freeze Eversource from applying herbicides along the right of way for a period of time. So I don't know if that affects your thinking at all. I'm not suggesting we file suit. I'm just saying.
I'm not one that's shy about litigation, Mr. Chairman.
I understand. So, okay, so you'd be supportive of the resolution that's drafted that pretty much repeats and.
Yes, and my earlier comments were more in terms of voluntary compliance on the part of Eversource, not them being forced by a court to But they are very important in health and considerations and environmental considerations that are at stake here.
Okay, Dan Horgan. Dan? Is Dan with us, or did the screen just freeze
Oh,
up?
Dan's muted.
Dan Horgan, can you hear me?
Dan's frozen.
Yeah.
Frozen in thought and frozen in time.
Okay, we'll come back to Dan. Dan,
Here
can
it
you hear
is.
me? Dan, can you hear me?
I apologize.
You're muted. Okay.
I'm sorry,
Now
are
we
you
can-
talking to me?
Yeah, we are. We're asking you for your
I
comments.
lost the connection there for a minute. I do have some questions.
Dan, we lost you again.
When there
Dan, we can't hear you. There's a distortion in your,
so that they're not going right up to the line.
Dan, can you try to reconnect yourself? We'll come back to you in a second. We can barely hear you. It's a very bad connection.
Bruce, can
All right. I'm gonna go to Eric Tolley. Eric, do you have anything?
No, I agree with Mike's points. So I would be in support of forwarding
Yeah.
the letter of or resolution.
Okay. I think you were probably one of the first ones to start drafting these. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think I did several of them.
Okay. Very good.
At least 6.
Yeah. Okay, Tracy, comments, thoughts?
I'm fully supportive of this. I've been supportive of this all along. I think that we should go further and make the resolution to include the town of Yarmouth, which this board supported its continuation of spreading and spraying. So I think that, yes, we should support this with Eversource, but we should also have a resolution within our own community and lead by example. Thank you.
Okay, well, all right, Dan Horgan, are you back? Looks like we're having trouble with Dan tonight. I hate for the train to leave the station without Mr. Horgan, but let me do this just to move this along in the interests of time. Do I have a motion to support the proposed resolution, very similar to the previous ones that we've?
Make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
I'll
do I have a
second
second
I'll second it.
from Eric? Any more discussion on this? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a roll call vote. Mike Stone,
Aye.
Eric Tolley,
Aye.
Tracy Post,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. It carries. Thank you very much. All right, that concludes that section of the agenda. And now we are on to the board and committee actions. And Mr. Horgan is back. Hopefully we can hear him. And he can walk us through board and committee actions. Dan, are you still there? Oops, we lost him again.
He's showing up on the screen, but there's no video and he's shown muted.
Yeah. No, exactly. He's frozen on the screen. Well, if the board's okay, I'm very happy to move these items, these appointments.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, so let me bring up the first one, and that is, do we have a motion to appoint Mr. Mike Duffy, Energy Committee, as the alternate representative to the Cape Light Compact Governing Board, an appointment for a one-year term running through April 2022?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Roll call vote. Mike Stone,
Aye.
Tracy Post,
Aye.
Eric Tolley,
Aye.
Dan Horgan, are you there? Chair votes aye. Next item, Library Planning Committee. This is to appoint Mary Johnson as a regular member to the Library Planning Committee. It's an appointment for a one-year term running through February 2022. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Roll call vote. Mike Stone,
Aye.
Tracy Post,
Aye.
Eric Tolley.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. It carries. That concludes that portion of the agenda. The next section will be upcoming agenda item review. And let me just call on our town administrator to kind of just walk us through, give us a preview of our next meeting on April 20th.
Okay, we're going to start with the
Update.
COVID-19 update.
Okay,
And then there's a new liquor license hearing for the Saga Yarmouth Incorporated, Saga,
mhm.
5521 Route 28. And then we have an update on the progress at the drive-in site. I know there's been a tremendous amount of work there. And we have it says ballot questions, but I think those are presentations on the town meeting warrant petitions
Yes, sir, that's correct.
that we have there.
We'll change them.
And
Those would be the warrant articles. My only concern about the warrant articles is those presentations, quite frankly, can take a significant amount of time. And I would like to recommend, if the board's okay with this, is putting some real strict parameters around those presentations, if that's possible. Can you help with that, Bob?
Absolutely. Yes,
Good
I
night.
spent a considerable time at the finance committee last week,
Right.
just listening to the presentations. They're extraordinarily eloquent speakers with a tremendous amount of information. So we'll try to put a time frame on that.
Yeah, if we could do that, because I think those discussions lasted an hour or two.
Yes,
And
that's
they
correct.
went quite lengthy, so I'm not sure we have the same amount of time.
No.
So if you could help out with that. Are there any other items board members would like to see on the agenda for our next meeting? Is there anything that we're missing?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to, well, it may not be important for the next meeting, but I'd like to discuss a reopening plan for town hall.
Okay,
I note that other town halls are starting to reopen, so I would just like to know what the plan for Yarmouth is.
okay.
And that's, next week looks like it's pretty full, so.
Maybe we can put that on for the following week. Is that a possibility? I'm gonna call on Bob
That
one
looks
and
like a
Bob
lengthy
two.
one too, but
So you'd like at least sometime within the next month, right, Eric?
well, I'm running out of time, so you can put it off for more than a month if you
No,
like.
no, no, no. No. I understand. So we'll try to get it in either the next meeting or the following one.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
One other item, Mr. Chairman, on the land disposition, we had a meeting today, and I don't believe there are going to be any articles to present at town meeting. The 2 or 3 parcels that would be sold are tax title properties and would not need to go to town meeting. There's a process under the general law that the tax collector and treasurer would handle those. But you will get a report from the board, but there will not be any need for an article.
Okay.
And I'd also suggest, after talking with Bob Rittenauer, that we'll have the warrant a good draft, and you could take a first review of the warrant in its almost final form.
That would be good.
On
So
the
you
20th.
can, so Bob, you can provide an update on the recommendations of the land disposition committee, explaining
Yeah.
specifically what articles or what land parcels may be at least addressed by the treasurer collectors.
Yes,
Okay. The collector's office. Okay.
we can do that. Yes, sir.
Very good. So do we still think that for the 27th, we're still going to be able to get an update on DHY from the Water Resources Committee? Is that still on track, or is that?
I think based upon our conversation on Monday, possibly not. I don't know that there's any new information. Mr. Rittenhour may have a different information, but my understanding is no.
Okay.
We will have 2 liquor hearings that evening. One on Red Face Jack's. It's a change of name and a change in premises. And then the Old Yarmouth Inn has a change in premises application before you.
Okay.
And I think then a lot of time would be taken up by the warrant.
Yep.
Even if the votes are to recommend from the floor, unfortunately, we need to go to print in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. All right. So you're hoping to have some recommendations on these articles, or at least many of them. Okay.
Be asking the board, yeah.
That's good. So, so with respect to upcoming agenda review, is there any comments, additions, subtractions?
Just a reminder, I won't be here next week.
You will not. Thank you, Tracy.
Be a quick meeting.
Okay. Any other comments? Any other suggestions? Okay. thank
We
you.
are planning on May 4th to have the required public hearings under the charter with the Capital Budget Committee and Finance Committee. The Capital Budget Committee is meeting, I believe, Thursday to review their priorities based upon the discussion with the Board of Selectmen on the body cameras. At least it'd be a first step for the body cameras. And then the Finance Committee, I think they'll have 2 meetings to try to be prepared to bring the board up to date on where they are as part of the final hearing.
Okay, that's terrific. That's great. Anything else on the upcoming agenda review? Okay, I'm going to move on to individual items. And I'm going to start with Mike Stone. Mike, do you have any
I
individual?
don't have anything, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Tracy?
Just to extend our sympathy to our colleagues in Harwich with the passing of Selectman Stephen Ford. And, you know, the school budget issue, just my thoughts on that is I appreciate the fact that, you know, I know Ed loves to have a settled budget and a tax rate set. And I know that that's probably driving a lot of the decision. And I think that, you know, sometimes we can't do the easy thing. We got to do the right thing. And, you know, if we do decide and the board clearly decided they want to go with the lower number, I think it should be very well thought through as far as what the plan is for the subsequent year. So, because I think that it's very unfair to our capital budget committee to take money from them again. And not, you know, and without knowing what the plan is to put that money back in that budget the next year. I'd like to hear what the plan is for that.
Well, they'll be for us. Anybody else? Eric, any individual items?
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Okay. I too want to join with Tracy in expressing condolences over the loss of Stephen Ford. I used to work with Stephen when he was with Congressman Studs, and Stephen was incredibly talented, very professional district director for Congressman Studs. When he left, I joined his staff full time after being in the town manager's office in Provincetown for many years. And Steve was a terrific selectman. I know he's been battling some health issues. He's a huge loss to the Cape and to the Harwich community. And I too want to add my condolences to the Ford family and everybody that is obviously heartbroken over Steve's loss. So I too.
As do I, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. The next item on the agenda, let me move along here, is the town administrator's items and the consent agenda. So I'm going to turn this over to the town administrator. And you can walk us through your consent agenda or not.
Okay, the consent agenda is comprised of two donations that require acceptance. There is $100 for the police department and $79.39 for the town library.
Okay. So you're looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda? I'll make that motion. Do I have a
Second.
Okay, a
Second.
motion and a second. Roll call vote. All those in favor, Mike Stone,
Aye.
Tracy Post,
Aye.
Eric Tolley.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Okay, that's passed. The next item on the agenda is town administrator updates. Are there any administrator updates? Bob?
Hey, I do have a couple of items that I wanted to bring up. Been here for, geez, just about 7 days now. And unfortunately, didn't have that quiet break-in period with everything happening for town meeting. But some of the key issues that really we've been working on, everyone in the office is, we've just got a full court press now on finalizing everything, all of the town meeting issues to prepare for the town meeting, which include finalizing the budget, getting all of the numbers, making sure everything is in full balance. You've got the town meeting warrant that you're going to be seeing next week. We've talked about, and we've got the departments also reviewing some of the petition articles to assist in that discussion. Next week, hopefully, you'll have a little bit more feedback than was available to the finance committee when they met last week. But those are some of the most critical issues in the office right now, and it really is a whole apparatus to prepare for that. There's another team that's been working on the logistics for town meeting. I know Bob's been working closely with Pat Armstrong, and we need to make sure all of the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted. I want also to just call the board's attention to, in terms of some of the most important things that were just hit with immediately walking in, there are some staffing issues that I think are pretty paramount, that we're investing a tremendous amount of effort on right now. And these are some critical recruitments for town positions that it really hurts not to have the staffing for. And one of those that is currently out, we're hoping to fill the position of the IT director as soon as is practical. That is one particular department that supports all of the town's operations, and it is funded, and it really needs some leadership to help us accomplish the tasks that we need to do to leverage technology to improve the service to the public. And that's a critical piece. And so that is a #1 priority. And we're also in the midst of our recruitment for an assistant town administrator. That one is not as hot of an issue. In fact, with Mr. Lawton there, I just feel he's been such a tremendous resource. I can't thank him enough for all of his efforts that are really keeping things rolling fast. So those are a couple of issues that we've spent a lot of time on.
Can I ask about one of them? Because I thought we had seen a memo about a position being offered for the IT position at some point in time recently.
Yeah, can you update the board on what happened with that candidate, Bob or Bob?
That's correct. I was dealing with that, and an offer was made. We were going to bring it to the board, and he withdrew. We could not reach an agreement on some salary issues as well as some fringe benefit issues. So we had to cancel it and go out again.
Does that help, Tracy?
Well, I just want to, who is the contact person in the interim for dealing with, who is the town's contact for IT?
We have a contract with Dan, I'm gonna mispronounce it, Mayhew. He's been a consultant and by bid, and he's been working with the current staff on IT issues. And Ed Centio's put his his information into, and he tries to take care of some of the day-to-day stuff, and the consultant is used for larger items.
Thanks, Bob. I see Dan Horgan has called in. Can we somehow promote Dan to the meeting, Kyle? Can you get him in here? Hopefully he can connect. Were there any other updates, Bob?
Yeah, well, while Dan's joining, the obviously another tremendous amount of time has just been spent meeting everyone, listening and learning, working with the department heads to visit the various locations. And there is one issue that really struck me as a critical issue that I was alerted to by Jeff Colby in our tour of the DPW facilities. And, we spent a lot of time in each of the areas. And again, Jeff is a super resource for the town, and it really, spent a lot of time with me, and I particularly appreciated that. And there was one issue that he brought into clear focus for me when we were at the solid waste transfer station. And it involves a problem that he's had, that he's been working on, that I want to make sure that the board is aware of, regarding some issues and concerns with the trash train and the cleanliness of that. And there have been some ongoing problems with Mass Coastal's rail cars. And the problem is that, we go through all of the procedures and load them up at the transfer station. And as they take off, trash has been escaping from the cars, littering areas. Jeff has taken some good leadership on that. And he first and foremost has worked with Covanta and Lawrence Waste System, which is Covanta's operators. And they've developed some detailed standard operating procedures on how the loading process is conducted, how the post-loading inspection process is supposed to work, how the cars are supposed to be capped, cleaned off, secured before they leave. And that was, I thought, one very positive step forward. But a second part of that standard operating procedure has been a detailed inspection of each one of the rail cars that's owned and operated by Mass Coastal. And Jeff provided the inspection reports that Covanta has conducted to me. And I was just, I have to say, appalled, and Jeff is as well. And I think the board should be appalled as well, that in inspecting train car after train car, we see there's a hole in the cover, for one, hole in the cover for another. There's spaces between the wall and the cover. So clearly the capital equipment that Mass Coastal is using, it sort of defies logic that they don't have the proper covers that are properly sealed. And I know that we've had correspondence with Mass Coastal, and we've involved some the state agencies, we've involved Covanta, yet still it's a problem that lingers. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to try to work with Mr. Colby and get the board's assistance and try to ramp up our pressure on this Mass Coastal Railroad. And I've had a little bit of history working with this company. We had a similar regional transfer station with the trains in a project that I worked on. And it is the most difficult thing getting these folks to fulfill their responsibilities with respect to this capital equipment. And I think this is an issue that impacts Barnstable tremendously. It impacts Yarmouth tremendously, and anyone else along the route. So I think it's an area that we should have a high level of awareness and put it on our radar screen as something that maybe our legislative delegation can assist us with the state agencies that oversee these, so that we can be guaranteed that when we properly load these cars, that, they properly take the waste to the facility, because, quite frankly, their negligence reflects poorly on our community, because we have the transfer station that originates the service. So people get the wrong idea about that. So that's just an issue that was brought to my attention that I wanted to do some more work on and work with the board and see if we can impact that.
Well, I appreciate you flagging that for us. Tracy, did you have a comment on that?
I just have a question related to the contract. Has the contract with them been reviewed to verify if there's any language in there in regards to the maintenance of their capital? I'm not sure how you refer to it, their capital property to, I mean, if there's something to hang our hat on.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at that contract language. One of the problems is that Mass Coastal has a long-term contract to have control over the tracks, and that, you know, they move at the same pace as the continents across the face of the earth. And it has been a longstanding problem. And I think we need to pull out those contracts. And
I think I hope my fellow board members can help me out on this, but I think you have our full support in getting this contractor and this railroad company to fully comply and operate at the highest standards, and to not be disposing of trash or allowing trash from this facility to be emanating out in Yarmouth or any other, Barnstable or any other community. So unless anybody feels otherwise, I think feel free to apply the pressure and speak to our legislators and find out if there are mechanisms that can be used so that they can act, you know, professionally and in line with the expectations under this contract. Is that appear?
I'll keep you updated on that issue, but I just wanted to make sure, you know, folks were kind of aware of that and knew, you know, to Jeff, it was a very, very serious issue, and I agree with him entirely. So it's something we're going to be working on.
Having dealt with this operator before, I think a lot of pressure is going to be needed to get them to be responsive on this. So I would encourage it, and I think the board's inclined to agree.
Okay.
Anything else?
Did you want to talk about, I think that the Barnstable Council is also going to, Town Council is also going to take this up Thursday night. So it may be, and I think Robert and I were suggested possibly having maybe even a joint letter with Barnstable, depending on what they do, to try to put more pressure on them. But just because there may be something in the
Does any
newspaper.
board member have an objection to that? Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We'd be happy to sign on to a very strong letter, both towns going on record urging them to get their act together. Is that what you're looking for, Bob?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Any other items to come before the board? Mr. Rittenhour, Mr. Lawton?
The only other update that I talked with Mr. Rittenhour about, the beach sticker issues, that is, changes are made last week. Sue Ripley and Ed Centio did a lot of work in putting, for lack of a better word, a desk out by the Route 28 entrance to Town Hall, the main entrance so-called, and people can come there all week and pick up a sticker. There is a process that keeps both parties safe, and that I think will take pressure off of the Chamber of Commerce, and even though they weren't doing it during the week, there was a lot of pressure on them to do it. This is a further accommodation. Plus, we have placed the applications on in a box on the side of Town Hall by the main parking lot, where people can also, if they don't choose to get a sticker right away, fill out the application, put it in an envelope that we provide, put to check-in, and if they put their phone number on it, we'll certainly call them when the sticker is ready. So I think this will speed the process up, at least in for people who wish to get the stickers locally. Thanks to Ed Centio and Sue Ripley for that. And we'll be putting out some information to the public so that they're fully aware of the changes. Thank you.
Great, Bob. Anybody, welcome back, Mr. Horgan. We thought we lost you there.
Oh, you most definitely did.
Yeah, but we're glad to have you back,
I
and
was
we did
trying to
approve your
get Jade
appointment.
on the phone, but she wouldn't answer.
We
And
did
the
approve
last
your
I heard,
appointment.
we were talking about the conservation area. So I'm just going to type my questions and forward them along to town manager and to the board members. I did have a couple questions, but obviously we're not going to go back at this point. I assume, were you able to make the appointments on the two committee matters?
Yeah, we did. We took them up
Okay,
and we
great.
approved them. So you're all set. You're off
Thanks
the
so
hook.
much. I appreciate that. And other than that, I have nothing.
Okay, that's great. Unless anybody has anything else, any other business before the board, I welcome a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, a motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Roll call vote. Mike Stone,
Aye.
Dan Horgan,
Aye.
Tracy Post,
Aye.
Eric Tolley,
aye.